getting any levels. Levels. Okay, now I'm seeing it. But the deck, so can I not mute myself? I can't mute myself. Like, you shouldn't see levels right now. Do you get what I'm saying? There's no mute. I can't mute. So you're hearing me right now. And you shouldn't hear me. Sports Tonight, your Tuesday edition. I'm Bailey Burmaster. We have a packed show for you. We're going to talk a lot about the Falcons, but we're also going to talk a lot about the Georgia Bulldogs as they continue with fall camp. But let's start with Atlanta. They went down south to Miami to have joint practices with the Miami Dolphins. A really good test as Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill and Waddle, the whole gang there, definitely were one of the better offenses in the league last season. So joint practices underway before that preseason game on Friday, which is set for 7. In the mixture of all of this, the Falcons also released their first depth chart of the preseason, which, let's not take it for everything it's supposed to be worth, but it is a good guideline base for where this team is at, especially with some of the positions that people have been watching, whether that's safeties or corners, of who will start alongside A.J. Terrell and Jesse Bates. Most notably, one of the ones that was interesting is Troy Anderson was listed as a starting inside linebacker along with Caden Ellis. It should be noted that to this point in training camp, both Anderson and Nate Landman had received kind of similar first-team reps. So that was something worth taking note in, and a portion of where Troy Anderson is on his progress after that injury from last year with his shoulder. As expected, Richie Grant has the edge over to Margot Helms alongside Jesse Bates at safety, while Mike Hughes gets the nod at corner opposite of A.J. Terrell. So those were the things that really came out of that first depth chart release from the Falcons. All of that ahead of the first preseason game on Friday. Head coach Raheem Morris did speak to media in Miami about what to expect from these joint practices. Let's listen in.
So you get more realistic looks for the DBs and the corners. A lot of fun. We're gonna get together as two teams and talk about the tempo and how we want to play. Okay. Obviously the 1/3. Obviously after that, tagging off the tempo and how we practice. You guys are getting used to seeing it. Staying away from the quarterback. I'll obviously have the quick whistle for Kirk just to protect him. But other than that, man, it is going to be, as you've seen, they're accustomed to practicing that way. We're accustomed to practice that way. And it's just about keeping this thing as together as we can.
You mentioned DB coach, or you, sorry, just I want to follow up on this. You looking forward to seeing how your defensive backs will hold up because they had one of the top passing attacks in the league last year?
That's the reason you come down here. Anytime you would get a chance to get that different competition and be a chance to go against guys like Tyreek Hill and Waddle and all the different guys they got. You can go through the list of names. This is the team that competed in the Olympics the other day in a 4x1. So to get out here and to be able to cover those things and go through some of the details, and you learn through the adversity that you put your team through, and these are one of the adverse situations you'll be able to put them in, going to their home turf and being able to feel Tyreek's speed on this grass at his place and their climate and their outcome. It's like that's what you want to create for your guys, and I look forward to that today.
Raheem, you mentioned last week the rookie front players you had last year. I'm curious when last summer you knew that they had that skill level to where they could, play at that high level.
All at different times. For Kobe, it was almost right away. You're almost scared to admit it for Kobe because it happened so early. It happened in like OTA days, and you're like always scared to overjudge up front person. And we were thinking, man, this guy's got the mental capacity. If he can hold up once we get to camp, it'll feel really good. For BY and some of those guys, it happened a little bit later. BY, I remember, believe it or not, it was in the joint practice versus Denver. And he really came to life in those practices, and then he followed up with another one versus LA, whichever way those things went. I forget was exactly which way, but it was a joint practice when he came to life. And like those younger guys, particularly up front, when they got into these joint practices, really stepped out of their bunks or their comfort zones and really showed us what they were possibly capable of doing. And it was fun.
We've seen a lot from Carlos Washington with both the ones and twos.
Yes.
How much depth is there in that running back room, and what does he add that's different from the others?
Obviously, our running backs are Bijan and Tyler. Those are our 1 and 2. But when you have those guys like Avery, like Carlos, like Jace, that bring different elements to the game, so you can find those roles that we talk about, like the role clarity that we talk about on defense, Taryn, and all the stuff that we want to talk about. It's like those guys provide those things. Carlos gives a little bit of juice, right? Carlos gives a little bit of something else out the backfield. He gives us like Bijan like qualities, and then you got Jace who give you like Tyler like qualities, and you find those. We used to call them clones back in the day with Julio, but all of these type of clones that kind of go with your starters and they kind of mimic those things. You never have the drastic fall off when a guy's missing a rep or two.
Are you doing that kind of everywhere on the team? Because we've seen it with Storm Norton taking over for Jake Matthews, and then also whenever Jesse isn't out there, you have both Clark and DeMarco.
It's the best thing in the world, right? Forming those roles and backup, and those people kind of going through those. You're exactly right, though. Like, you're forming people's roles and what they do best. You're finding out what you can do if they have to go in and play the whole game. If they played the entire game, they're your starter, they're your long-term starter, your short-term starter. How are those things going to look? What is it going to look like? And we want to form that all across the board throughout your team. And it helps you to define, it helps you to speak clearer, it lets the team know exactly what you're looking for. It's always fun to find it that way.
Coach, for you guys as coaches, this is not just for the players, it's for you guys too, kind of in the moment.
100%. Like you want to get to the sideline. You want to see it from the perspective you've seen in the game. You get a chance to evaluate your guys as far as what they're going to look like when it comes to toughness versus another team. You want to see what it's going to look like when it comes to the adversity that you're going to face, some of the adjustments you got to make from the unknown opponent, from the unknown things, the non-scripted periods. It's a lot of fun. The substitution packages, how you roll it, how you're able to clearly, concisely be able to communicate with all your coaching staff. Like I love these practices. Going out to L.A., was really an eye-opening experience for me and really putting the importance on the joint practices because you have the chance to mitigate injuries. And you want to do most of it because it's for your players, right? The thing you do these for is the chance to get guys to go out there and get that live competition that you would get in games, but you can mitigate the injuries because how you can control the tempo out here.
And kind of bouncing off of that, is there a method of sort of figuring out what does work and what doesn't work sometimes in these practices to kind of like see, that's kind of cool, it works against this team, or is it more or less just kind of getting reps against another team?
You can do that as well, and then sometimes you just want to have all your stuff out to be able to go out there and practice for you, just to see what guys can execute and what they can do and how well they can do it. And then like sometimes you got some, like you said, there's always going to be some testers out there. There's always going to be some, hey, our chance to go explore as opposed to what you're doing with your bread and butter. So like some exploration things, some obviously some bread and butter things, some core concepts, your guys working together, the communication from around when you get the known distractions, the media, the fans, the opposite team. It's always fun. It's a great deal. I enjoy this like no other.
Raheem, along those lines, is there any part of this process that is collaborative for you as a coaching staff with the Dolphins, or is this all still kind of competitive secrets?
It's 100%. A lot of it's collaborative, right? That's why this tape won't be leaked to anyone else, other than Atlanta and Miami. And it's well documented amongst our coaches to not let this tape go out, right? There's some things that Mike's going to explore. There's some things that we're going to explore, and you don't want those things out until we actually play in September. So we'll let those things play out, and that's why you want to do it with trustworthy people that you absolutely got care for. And belief in, and you also want to collaborate with the tempo and how practice is going to be, and you want to be on the same page. That's how you can mitigate some of the things that happen in these practices that we know about. So
We heard from Dogs defensive coordinator Glenn Schumann and co-DC Travaris Robinson today. It's the only time all season head coach Kirby Smart makes them available to the media. Schumann even joked it's an annual meeting. For the first time since being hired at UGA, we heard from Coach T-Rob. He spent 2 seasons with Nick Saban at Alabama, but it probably still feels like he's around him quite a bit since now he's dealing with Kirby.
First of all, I would say, you see this microphone right here? All right, that'll probably be the main difference. All right, when a guy come run to you and tell you something, or when you hear it on that microphone and your players hear him talking to you, hey, T-Rob, I mean, this guy don't know what he's doing, or you don't know how to coach it.
Will Muschamp pushed for Robinson to come to Athens when he decided to lessen his role on the field. The two have coached together on and off for years. Robinson doesn't hold back when talking about his mentor, but it's obvious his mentor doesn't either.
And then Will spoke incredibly highly about him even before this opportunity came about. I trust Will and his opinion with just about everything. It's been awesome to have Travaris here, and he's been a great addition.
Been with Coach Muschamp for a long time. Everything that I've done in my career, he always assisted me in. We say some of the same stuff, all right, but I say it a little different to him. I got a little nicer side than he got sometimes.
And Coach Robinson says this year's motto is assume nothing. His secondary is in a competition battle across the board. He doesn't want his players, including Malachi Starks, to assume they have a starting spot on the roster. He wants them to compete for it. Reporting from Sanford Stadium, Emily Gagnon, Atlanta News First.
So Georgia continues on with fall camp. We don't get to talk to Glenn Schumann all that much, maybe once or twice a year. And we actually got to speak to him on this 6th day. So let's listen into what he had to say about the Bulldogs and their fall camp.
It's great to see y'all for our annual meeting here today. 6 days into camp, installs intentionally really heavy. As we start things, we like to challenge guys early, both old and young. Look at some new things, move people around, and really try to stretch them mentally and physically early in camp. So guys have been battling through that with the new staff additions, the new additions in terms of players. I've been really pleased with how we've got things started, and guys have embraced, what it means to play defense at Georgia, the standard and expectations, and we look forward to continuing with practice 6 today.
You're going to get a lot of questions about defense, but I wanted to ask you about the other side of the ball since it's kind of you guys are working on yourself at this point. Who's giving you guys trouble on the offensive side of the ball and kind of been a problem for you this far in camp?
Well, it's a great opportunity every day to go against our offense. At every level, all the positions, offensive line, a ton of experience, really talented. Obviously, Carson plays at a really high level. There's depth in the running back room and in the receiver room and in the tight end room. So, when you have an offense, I think, where there's not one guy and every position group can be a threat, it's really challenging, for every position group on our side of the field. And it's an awesome opportunity for us to compete against them every day.
Yeah, Coach, you talk about starting install with overload, giving them as much as possible, but it requires being a great teacher, I think is what you mentioned last year. What's the key to being a good football teacher?
I don't know about overload. We just like to challenge them because growth in anything you do comes from challenging yourself. But you have to be detailed and you have to be a clear communicator. And, Coach Moore talks about assuming nothing. As a teacher, you can't assume that the people that you are delivering the message to are understanding what you are saying unless you get that communication back and forth. So I think those elements are important.
Glenn, how well did you know Travaris before he got here, and kind of what is that, another code? What does that look like?
We had met each other. I had always had the utmost respect for him, both as a coach and as a recruiter and just a person. And then Will spoke incredibly highly about him even before this opportunity came about. And, I trust Will and his opinion with just about everything. And, it's been awesome to have Travaris here, and he's been a great addition.
Glenn, kind of piggybacking off of that, what has it been like having Travaris and also Dante Williams, just them now part of this defensive staff?
Great energy, and they've bought into what we do. They knew what the expectations were here, and they embraced them, and they wanted them. And they've approached every day with a lot of passion and energy, and they really care about their players.
I know it's a collaborative effort on the defensive side of the ball, but with Will Muschamp, with all of the experience, how did he help you when you sort of took over those primary defensive play caller duties, and how has his role maybe changed a little bit since obviously moving into an analyst role?
Well, it's awesome to be able to have Will here. When he made the decision to move into an analyst role, the ability for us to keep him in the building and keep him part of the program, even before they approved, the coaching restrictions, was, a blessing to all of us. And the best thing that, and I'm thankful for Will in this regard, is as much as he's done in his career, Will does not have an ego in any way, shape, or form. So, that collaborative effort, he just wanted, we worked together. He helped me grow in a lot of ways, and when things were difficult, he was a great, supporting cast member, and we worked, together as the whole defensive staff does every year.
Glenn, what have you seen from CJ and Raylan individually as they begin their second season, and with Smile, where is he with his foot injury?
Smile is doing a great job in his rehab. I would say he's exactly on track. He was moving around really well yesterday. We have a plan for him. He's following the plan with the maturity that you'd expect from a guy with his experience level, and as both a player and in age. CJ and Raylan, they really benefited from this spring, having the opportunity to take over, heightened leadership roles and in bowl prep, and they've only grown from that. I think you see an increased confidence in them, and those guys are really mature beyond their years in terms of how they prepare, and so they've been growing every day, and I'm excited about how they're going to play this year.
You mentioned how complimentary of Tavares Will was before y'all brought him in. Just how have you seen Will's influence on him as a coach?
I think, they talk about your closest circle of friends. Those are the people you end up being most like. Those influences as it pertains to T-Rob is he's incredibly passionate. He cares about the players. He is detailed, and he has he attacks everything that he does. He's not passive. He's urgent, and he's a really good football coach.
Yeah, Coach Smart talked about developing depth on the defensive line the other day. Just what have you seen so far in camp from both the younger guys taking on bigger roles, but also some of those veterans coming back, like Nazir, I know Tyrion and Warren are battling through injuries, but some of the veterans as well.
We're still in the infancy of pads, and so I think that we're going to really see that group take the next step as we continue to have more padded practices. There's a lot of other positions where you can benefit from non-padded practices in terms of executing assignments, covering people, and things of that nature, but you only really get highly skilled at your craft up front and develop by putting the pads on and striking blockers and feeling, a 700 pounds in a double team, on that force on your body. So I think we're going to see those next steps being taken over the coming weeks.
Glenn, on Jalen Walker, he likes to, call himself a hybrid guy, but how do you maximize him and make sure that he's not just a jack of all trades, master of none kind of guy?
Well, I think we have a responsibility in two ways in everything we do. One, to do what's best for this team and this defense to be successful, as a unit, because those guys care about the collective goals. That's part of why they came here, the connection and the ability to play and compete for championships and play great defense. Two, we have a responsibility for each player to put them in the best position to have a career in football if their ability gives them the opportunity to do that. And so with Jalen, we have to expand his role because he's a talented player, and the best way to expand his role is to continue to develop him as a hybrid player while also, maximizing his opportunities to, do what he does best. So he's actually, he's really improved in both areas, and the way he's attacked practice, both from an effort and a leadership standpoint, has been really impressive. So I'm excited about where he's going.
Yeah, Coach, I'm sure you've talked about this in years past, but could you talk a little bit about your start in coaching? You started as a student assistant at Alabama, just the opportunity there, and then just what someone like you might have to overcome if they didn't necessarily play the game at a high level, but ultimately reach the pinnacle of it as a coach.
I'm gonna try to sum this up to my best of my ability because that's a long story. But essentially, going into my senior year of high school, my dad was a coach, my mom was a coach, and I didn't necessarily ever want to be a coach, but I always wanted to be involved in athletics in some shape or form. Going into my senior year of high school, there was a moment at football practice where I helped another player with something, and I had the biggest rush of my life. seeing them be successful after me helping them in some way, shape, or form. And kind of at that moment, I knew I wanted to coach. And my dad had played for Bear Bryant at Alabama. There's a Bryant scholarship. I had the opportunity to go there, and I essentially just came in and worked for, nothing at first, and tried to just do anything I could to earn trust and respect, and then grow my football knowledge from that point. I didn't necessarily set out to be a college football coach at that point. I just wanted to be a football coach, and then it's led me here, and I've tried to do the best job I could at each step of the journey. But that's as concise as I can be there, but that's kind of the summary.
Yeah, I guess similar to Jalen Walker, with Michael Williams playing both defensive line and edge, how do you go about getting the most out of him this season, especially with those responsibilities increasing at outside linebacker?
Because of the style of defense that we play, the different personnel groupings, the packages, the way that we rotate and mix and match based on our opponent, the situation in the game, I think it gives us the opportunity to dual train guys like Michael, guys like Jalen, guys like Gabe Harris. There's a lot of guys in the secondary. There's guys who play safety and star. We do this a lot in practice. On game day, their roles is based on what we think is best to win the game. But as these guys have matured and grown and been able to go through this learning process multiple times, they can take on more. And it makes it easier to play them in a variety of roles. And guys that can do multiple things, you obviously want to find ways to highlight them if they're productive. And Michael's one of those guys, so he's going to, affect the game in a variety of ways this year.
What have you seen out of that outside linebacker room to this point in camp?
Those guys really starting in the off season, it was really unique. And I'm gonna go with the young guys. Obviously, there's the utmost respect for what Chaz brings to that room, and he has been a better version of himself this entire offseason. I think he's really attacked areas that he needed to grow. He's affected the passing game more, and he's done a better job in terms of what he's done in space while remaining a tough, gritty player. Kind of that sums up the whole room in a lot of ways. You have guys that last year with some of the young guys who are, they were really good in one area, and that position requires a lot. You have to be able to cover, Robert Beal is running down the field covering Emeka Egbuka in the peach ball on a wheel route, stride for stride with him, right? That's part of the job responsibility. You have to be able to set edges and rush the passer. It's because of the style of defense we play, it's a really hybrid role, even though it's an edge player. So those guys in that room have all kind of attacked their weaknesses, whether that's Damon's put on a lot of weight, gotten stronger in the run game. Gabe has become a position versatile player that, was really just a hand-down DN before, and now he's a much more well-rounded out player. Sam Mpemba, he's a guy that didn't play a lot of outside backer before his senior year at IMG, and so he's grown a lot as a football player. That whole room, and Quindavis Johnson has done a really good job. So those guys that are in that room, I think that they've all attacked the areas they needed to improve, which is what you expect of people if they want to grow, and they've done a really good job. So I'm pleased with that room to this point in camp.
Coach, we're approaching the 3-week mark to the opener against Clemson. Never too early to talk about that. What can you tell us at this point about what you know about Clemson, and how different might they be than maybe when you guys opened against them in 2021, or that's some things you're still trying to figure out?
I think when the purpose of camp, right, is that we are, our focus right now is on getting better. It's focusing on our installation, focusing on our players and their development. When it's this window of time for these 2 weeks that you have to attack your technique and fundamentals, okay, your mental part of the game, your every area that you need to focus on toward yourself. Because if you become a better player, if each person, each coach grows themselves over this period of time, that'll pay more dividends than just about anything that you'll do in opponent prep. In terms of them, we shift our focus once we've made it through the conclusion of camp and we've kind of figured out who's on the bus and what seats are they in. And in terms of their program, obviously what Coach Swinney has done there has been outstanding. They added, they have Coach Riley, Garrett Riley, that was at the offensive coordinator at TCU when they were outstanding. The year we played them in the national title game, and then they added Matt Luke to the rest of their offensive staff, and it should be a great game.
What are you looking to differentiate between Daniel Harris, Julio, as they compete at cornerback?
Well, that whole room is still in competition. So I just single out those two guys. There's a lot of young players in that room, because whether it's young based on experience or age, everybody is constantly growing. And I think when you look at them, you have to be able, when you play corner in college football, you have to be able to not only be a guy that's a man-to-man cover guy, you have to be able to show up in the run game, perimeter block destruction for bubble screens, and be a good tackler. So that's really what we need out of that position in general, is to be able to be successful in man-to-man, play the ball down the field, and still be able to be a factor in the perimeter block destruction game and tackling. And I think that, those guys flash in each of those areas, but increased toughness, it's a monster. It's part of the Georgia defense, it's part of playing defense in general. And as those guys continue to grow in that area, they'll become better players.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll keep you updated on everything Georgia as they approach that first game in just a couple weeks. Do want to talk a little bit about the Olympics before we get out of here. Some big news where U.S. women's national team is concerned. They will play for the gold medal after beating Germany 1-0 in extra time once again in that semifinal that they had on Tuesday. Sophia Smith was able to tally a goal in the 95th minute to win it for the U.S. That will ultimately now be the gold medal match on Saturday. They will face Brazil in that gold medal match after the Brazilians upset the win over the World Cup winner Spain in Tuesday. It was actually a year ago, if you look back, where it was the program's lowest moment when they were eliminated out of the round of 16 in the Women's World Cup. And now they're kind of back where they feel like they should be. So that is definitely going to be a fun game on Saturday. Can't talk about the Olympics unless we talk about the USA basketball men's team. They were able to get the win over Brazil 122-87. That now sets down a semifinal showdown versus Serbia. That game is on Thursday. This was a big game, back-to-back games with 30-plus assists for the USA men's basketball team for the first time since 1992. So where does that leave our medal count? It leaves the U.S. with a hefty lead in first. They have 24 gold, 31 silver, and 31 bronze for a total of 86 medals. Second behind them is China. They have 22 gold, 21 silver, and 16 bronze. That's only a total of 59 to the U.S.'s leading 86. That is quite a difference. After that, in third place is Australia, who have 14 gold, 12 silver, 9 bronze for a total of 35. Interestingly enough, that is something worth noting because there was a lot of talk about Australia and the U.S. specifically in swimming, and Australia talked a lot. They talked a lot about making sure they were going to dominate the U.S. specifically in swimming in the pool, and they were not able to do that. It was thanks to the women that the U.S. ended up on top with medals compared to Australia when it came to the pool. In fourth is France, 13 gold, 16 silver, 19 bronze for a total of 48. Interestingly enough about France and those gold medals is Leon Marchand has a lot of those. He was just absolutely dominant in the pool, so something that was definitely worth noting. But a lot of Olympic action still going on. It goes on through August 11th, so we'll keep you updated here on Sports Tonight. But that will do it for this edition of Sports Tonight. Make sure to tune in with us for the rest of the week. We'll have all the latest covered, especially as the Braves continue on with the Brewers. If you missed that note, there's going to be a series in 2025 between the Reds and the Braves at Bristol Motor Speedway. So that is definitely a different atmosphere. That is being reported by The Athletic. The league has yet to confirm that, but there's rumblings that there might be an official announcement come Friday, so we'll keep you posted on that. But for this edition of Sports Night, I'm Bailey Burmaster. Make sure to join us throughout the week. We'll see you then. Have a good night.